a CNBC original podcast.
We all have to make big decisions in our lives, decisions that define and influence our professional and personal journeys. If you reflect on them, some are good and some I'm sure you'll definitely regret. In my nearly 3 decades as a financial journalist, I've interviewed literally thousands of CEOs, politicians and market voices, and they all had to make decisions to get to where they are today. In this podcast, I hear about those choices as well as the moments of doubt, risk and conviction that impacted our guests' journeys and the people they lead. This is Executive Decisions with me, Steve Sedgwick. In this episode, I speak to Sir Nigel Wilson.
The world should be a wonderful place because there's tons of opportunities to do great things out there. We're just not doing enough of those great things right now. But the opportunity set's there to do it and really make a difference, and we can.
Nigel was the CEO of UK financial services giant Legal & General for more than 10 years before becoming chairman of the Canary Wharf Group in 2024. But his journey to becoming one of the UK's most successful business leaders had humble beginnings on a council estate in the northeast of England. Getting a place to study at a prestigious American university helped change that course.
When the Kennedy Scholarship came through, my dad went over to the pub with me and said, "I just want to tell you all, my son has just got into the Massachusetts Institute of Technology." And the people in the pub went, "But there's a tech at Darlington."
He tells me it was his intellectual curiosity, a drive to tackle complex industry challenges that led him from one company to the next. Each move shaped his philosophy on leadership.
One of the weaknesses, and I still think it's a weakness in pretty much every business, and certainly every business I've worked for, is people are really good at writing lessons learned reports. They're not so good at learning the lessons.
These are Sir Nigel Wilson's Executive Decisions. I have the bits and pieces. Born in Norwich, moved up to Darlington, lived on a council estate, big loving family with your mother, your father, your grandmother, big influences on you. But you tell me a little bit more about where Nigel Wilson comes from.
Yeah, I was very lucky because I grew up on a modern council estate where modern schools had been built. And so we had young teachers who were totally enthusiastic and enjoyed the intellectual curiosity I had. So they were, quite tolerant of some of my idiosyncrasies, which stayed with me till today. But they gave me a lot of good advice and taught me incredibly well in all parts of life, sporting wise, academic wise, and real values from a society point of view. And I felt very privileged to have that. And then I went to the local grammar school, which was exactly the same, a brand new grammar school with amazing young teachers who were totally enthusiastic. And, till his dying day, my history teacher still tells funny stories about me being in class when I was asking, questions and having contrarian views about stuff. So I had an intellectual curiosity, which was through my family, my wider family, because I had lots of people looking after me when I grew up, because I was the first child, first grandchild, first great-grandchild, and so lots of people gave me care and attention and indulged me to a certain extent. And
how important was a loving, big family in evolving who you became?
It still is today. I still have a lot of responsibility as the person who looks after the whole of the family, tries to make sure everyone's good, not just mentally and physically, but financially as well. And so, and I learned a lot from my parents, grandparents, and great grandparents about the need to do that and keep the family together and keep everyone happy and jolly, and trying to solve family problems, which can be very time consuming and illogical and irrational and emotive and all of those things.
But it's really interesting, and I'm going to draw very heavily on a speech that was made about you at Newcastle University last year, because there's some amazing stuff, and your nan's advice was to be kind, optimistic and forgiving as well.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant advice for a start, but A, is that accurate? B, if it is accurate, how much has that formed the basis of some of the ways you've made decisions over your life?
No, I think the first two are absolutely accurate. I found the forgiving bit a bit more difficult when I was younger, but it is as you get older, you realise that's the wisdom that you get from age, and people have to learn to be forgiving and tolerant. And that's probably what's lacking in society at the moment. And if things go wrong, be forgiving about it. Don't shout and rage at people, because when things do go wrong, people themselves often feel terrible about them. And picking up management teams when things go wrong has to be one of the key things you do, and shouting and yelling at them isn't the solution.
Were you a shouter and yeller? I think when I was a young man, for instance, well, for a start, I was a trader, so I was shouting and yelling a lot. But I think, my colleagues might disagree, but I think I've mellowed a lot over the last couple of years. But have you?
I've never been a shouter, even when I captained football.
Even when you weren't forgiving?
Yeah, even when I wasn't. I've never been much of a shouter. Even on the football pitch, when I was captain of a few of the teams that I played for, it was the real role to really encourage people all of the time. And some people think shouting has a big impact, and I'm a great believer as well in the theatre of management, but actually shouting rarely works, and it's not a tool that I consider as being part of my toolbox to achieve good outcomes.
On a soccer pitch, you were called small, fast, and a little cocky.
Yeah.
Not good enough to be a Newcastle number 9, but still pretty good as well. Has that been a little bit of who Nigel Wilson is off the pitch throughout life?
Yeah, to a certain extent. I got lucky and unlucky in a sense, is that when all the scouts were watching me, when I was 16 and 17, I was 5'1" tall and weighed about 5.5, 6 stone, and really just got kicked every game. And I remember I was playing semi-pro football up in the northeast, and after about 10 or 15 minutes I went over to the referee. At the time I had long curly hair and I was wearing a pair of gloves, so I was tiny, and I went to ref, somebody's savage kick and fouled on me, somebody's spat at me, and somebody's punched me in the nuts, to be honest. And I said, "Ref, you've got to protect me." He said, "Son, it's a man's game, get on with it." And at the end of the game, a couple of the old pros came over to me and said, "Look, this is going to happen to you the rest of your life, every week. They're just going to kick and kick and kick, because they hate the fact that you're quick and they can't tackle you and you whiz by, and they're just going to foul you all the time. So you're a clever lad, go to university."
But is that a metaphor for life, and kind of toughened you up a little bit in business, the way you were treated on a soccer pitch?
Yeah, I learned to be tough. And then I grew 10 inches. And so when football clubs came and had a look at me again, by that time I'd gone. I'd moved into academia by that time, and I really wanted to be a very successful academic. And I realised that lots of things had a different lifestyle, and lots of the people who had been amazing at 14, 15, 16 didn't make it as professional players, and very few got through to doing it. So even if it's your dream, it doesn't naturally happen, and the probability of success in academia was way higher than for me.
I see it all the time. To be pretty good at sport is a curse. Not very good, but pretty good.
Oh, see, the thing is, I looked at it the other way around. It's actually, I think of myself as lucky, the fact that actually I didn't go and sign up for a football club and spend year after year after year trying to get
and then
through.
Not make it at 18.
Not make it at something else. And I want to try and be the best version that I can. And the same for football and running. When I was young, I tried the best I could, but I just wasn't quite good enough. And I realised...
You still have that in you as a businessman. I mean, look, you have been a stunningly successful businessman, and we'll talk through that. But has that guided how you've made decisions in your life? The fact that you really want to knuckle down and be the absolute best you can?
Yes. Yeah. I want to be the best chief executive I can be. And now I want to be the best CFO, then best chief executive, now the best chairman I can possibly be.
Can you be too driven?
I think so at times. I can be too driven, and I set standards for other people, which I have in the past set excessively high standards. I think, in retrospect, at the time, I probably wasn't as perceptive as I am now, and I got better at that as I got older.
You've already referred to the move into academia a couple of times, and I want to explore that, because that was probably your first big early decision. Not sport, not business to start off with, but academia as well. So a kid who grew up in Darlington area, County Durham part of the world as well, going to university, but then going on to MIT as well. That raised a few feathers, didn't it? That decision, this fact that you decided to go overseas. Yeah,
it was very funny. When the Kennedy scholarship came through, my dad went over to the pub with me and said, I just want to tell you all, my son has just got into the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And the people in the pub went, but there's a tech at Darlington. Why is he not going to Darlington? Where is Massachusetts?
I'm sure Darlington Tech is amazing, but...
And so I said, Dad, just calm down. Nobody's going to be terribly interested about that. Just leave it. But for me and my friends and whatever, it was hugely exciting to get to go on a Kennedy scholarship and a double Kennedy scholarship.
So what was this, the mid-70s?
Yes.
Yeah. So even then, why did you want to go to MIT? And you say you got the scholarship.
Yeah, that goes back to the importance of mentors who open doors for you in your life. And I really thought very hard about who you get advice from and who are your mentors through life. And even to this day, I have a few people who are still mentors of mine because they know me very well and I can bounce ideas off them. And the panel on the Kennedy scholarship were also really enthused about me going to MIT, and this sort of quirky guy from the Northeast who turned up in a park and whatever for the interview, they just thought was, terrific.
Did you feel overwhelmed, or did you feel that it was the right place for you?
Right place, yeah. I never feel overwhelmed. I am what I am, and I never get nervous. That's why I took penalties all the time. I was never the best penalty taker in training, but I only missed 3 in my life.
It's one of those traits, and we've done a lot of these interviews now.
Yeah.
Where the CEO we're speaking to loves making decisions.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the root of this program. That's why we're speaking to so many successful CEOs. Yeah. You have to like making decisions, being the last woman or the last man standing as well. You like that.
And good decisions. And the decisions that have been through a process which builds teamwork and constructive collaboration and all the things that I value as a person, that people feel as though we've done the right thing. And if it goes wrong, and lots of things go wrong, you recognize that it's not a fault, it's a learning experience that when things go wrong. And one of the weaknesses, and I still think it's a weakness in pretty much every business, and certainly every business I've worked for, is people are really good at writing lessons learned reports. They're not so good at learning the lessons.
There's a vast amount of literature out there about the importance of making mistakes.
Yes.
Do you feel that companies are forgiving enough when you make the wrong decision, or actually kind of they're too quick to close the book on you, or just say, no, you're the wrong person for the job? And also, do you learn from those decisions?
Yeah, there's just some historical context around this. I was lucky again, to a certain extent, is that 2 really big decisions that were made, I was on the exec, but not the board. So I was neither CEO or CFO. Mm-hmm. When I was at Dixons, we were going to buy Best Buy. We ended up buying Silo, which was the last firm that was on the list. It's a terrible acquisition and should never have happened. But so the strategy was right. The execution was really poor. And people didn't really step up to the fact that actually that was a really poor decision. We should learn from that. And when the IPO at GPA didn't go ahead, I wrote a really good board paper saying what I thought we needed to do, which in hindsight was the right thing. However, I didn't influence the influentials on the board ahead of it. I was so proud of the document I'd written that I got outmaneuvered by the chairman at the meeting that decided what steps we should take. And again, that's when I really realized that you need collaboration at every level, and that you can understand things very quickly, but other people don't necessarily understand things as quickly.
So you can have the smartest idea, you can make the best decision, but unless you build a consensus and collaborate with other people, you're not going to get it through.
That's really important to do that. And it works on the negative side as well, is that you don't want to be involved in decisions that you think are bad. And I've tended to step away from those sorts of situations, which doesn't always enhance your career, but it does keep you intellectually honest.
Let's go back before we go forward, because you mentioned Dixons. I want to go just back before that. So you've gone to MIT, you're loving it. How long was it that you wanted to be an academic before you made what was perhaps one of your best decisions and you got out of academia?
Yeah. I mean, I dreamt of being what I'd become, which is, and at MIT, and I really enjoyed working with Bob Schiller.
Wow,
and I talked with him and did research with him, and I realized
you're not going to take credit for the index.
No. I did a lot of the work.
Did you now? Oh, that's interesting.
I realised very quickly one of us was going to get the Nobel Prize for economics and one of us wasn't, because
Bob Schiller's name will go down as the winner of that.
Yeah. Well, he deserved it. But I had a weekend away with my friends from Harvard, and we'd gone skiing. I'd never been skiing in my life. My wife and I were super excited. And the guys from Harvard wouldn't go out until they'd finished their homework. And I was like, come on, guys. And in the end, I walked over. And for somebody who was as mathematically as inclined as I was, this was relatively straightforward. So I did it very quickly for them. And they went, wow, that's amazing.
It was like a Goodwill Hunting moment.
It was really, because they said, why don't you, go to, Goldman Sachs or McKinsey or somebody like that? And I said, never heard of them. What do they do? So I went away and did some analysis on this and figured that actually McKinsey would be a good place for me to go, and thought a lot about it, talked to some of my friends, and went and interviewed for McKinsey in America. They offered me a job in America, but I'd put the wrong tick in the box. I meant to tick the UK box. So I had to go through the process twice.
Was it, well, I really believe now that this is the way forward for me, or were you just ambivalent about it?
No, because I was thinking of the research I was doing with Bob, but I really didn't have enough life experience. And I thought, this is like a free option. I'll go and work for McKinsey for 3 or 4 years, maximize my knowledge. And then if I need to go back into academia, or if I'm really good at it, I can have a business career and then go back to university, maybe when I'm 50.
That's the one. That's your best decision.
That's the best decision I ever made.
And what I really like about it, and resonates with me, look, in my own modest career, when I first became a trader, and also when I first became a journalist 11 years later, both of those times I gave myself the optionality to go back to university first time or go back to trading the second time if either of those scenarios hadn't worked. And I think that's really important for everyone listening and watching. Give yourself options. Don't tie yourself down to one route. And that's what a good decision does, isn't it?
It does, yeah. And it builds confidence in your decision making as well. The fact that I was going to be paid 5 or 6 times as much at McKinsey. So I went back to talk to my wife at the time, and I said, I'm being offered this job at McKinsey. It's going to pay 5 or 6 times as much as I'm getting paid as an academic. What do you think I should do? And she went,
so I love you as an academic, honey, but we could have a better life as well.
We can have a life. We can, we can have children. As you know, I have 5 beautiful daughters. We could live in a really nice detached house in London and be financially secure, not just for me, but for the rest of my family, for the rest of my life.
So one thing I've noticed, I was amazed when I was doing my research that you were at McKinsey in 82, Dixons in 86, Stanhope in 88. What have I got? Guinness Peat Aviation 92, Waste Management International, Viridian, UBM as well. I couldn't believe how many jobs you'd had.
Whole Foods, Capita, Legal & General, a lot.
What were you doing with all the? Because were you just sounding out different places, seeing how you feel, or were you unsettled? Or
no, it was back to being intellectually curious about everything. I wanted to do the best job I could possibly do, and try and solve what was the industry problem that we were in, and go to an industry that was really interesting. When I joined Dixons, I wanted toughening up commercially, and they made me responsible for the Far East buying operation and having to deal with the likes of Alan Sugar. Not just the deep end, the very deep end of and it toughened me up commercially, which I felt at having had a sort of a softish career at
because
McKinsey.
Dixons and Amstrad had a bit of a relationship in those days.
Yeah, Alan wasn't the easiest guy to deal with, and as you can still see, even today, brilliant entrepreneur and was ahead of his time and everything else. But it was good to learn about what was happening in the Far East, and actually going to Taiwan and Korea and Japan and Hong Kong and meeting people and doing face-to-face tough negotiations with people, and then having support from Stanley and Mark back at Dixons.
So did you always have then a vision that you would end up somewhere to make an impression, or actually were you hoping to make an impression at those individual jobs?
I was the best version I could possibly be of myself in all of those jobs. Worked really, really hard at everything. And I felt when I became chief executive of Legal & General, this was my big opportunity to use all the learning I'd got from all of the years to do a really, really fantastic
It's almost
job.
Churchillian, Nigel. Churchill says, and look, there are a lot of books about him being a study in failure before 1939, 1940, but what he says is his entire life up till that moment, 1940, was preparing himself for the key role of his life. I'm not comparing you necessarily to Churchill, but it's almost like all those roles up to that point prepared you for the key role where you're going to make the biggest impact.
Yes. Yeah, and I thought like that, and it gave me the optionality all the time of going back into academia if I wanted to. So if I got fatigued about doing
You always felt there was a put option there.
there was always a put option there. There really is. And today, with my most recent appointment, you can see that's back into semi-academic life.
So you joined Legal & General. You became the CFO.
I joined as CFO with the intention of becoming the CEO.
Right. And tell me why you stayed there as long as you did, given the fact that up until that point, you had moved around every few years.
The job itself, a global job, a complicated job, when I first agreed to join, the share price was about 20p, and there was a lot that needed changing. And I was given a great platform to do all of that, and to, how do you expand in Japan? How do you expand in America? How do you build, market leading positions across the UK? And recruiting the team and building the team it was a multi-year plan. And we did incredibly well. I probably extended it by a couple of years because of COVID, to be honest, is that I could have left a couple of years early, but COVID meant I didn't have to travel as much, and I felt I was still making a big contribution to it. But
you still could have made a big contribution to this day, couldn't you?
I could, but I wanted to move on at that point, is that I decided I wanted to be an executive chairman, and my advice, again, go back to my non-executive chairman, my advice from my mentor group was, hurry up, because there's a very big birthday not far away for you, and you better get one of those jobs before that big birthday comes around, because you'll find it as a first-time non-executive chairman. I did some of it on a much more minor scale. It would have been a low probability of getting that. I still had the option of going back into academic life.
Yeah.
But I could do both. I could do all the things I was really interested in the new life that I wanted to lead, and going back to my earlier ambitions about athletics, etc., etc. I couldn't do that while I was working flat out for Legal & General.
But someone who is so hands-on and has so many strong ideas and likes making decisions, we've established it from the moment you were a kid, taking the penalties in the football team as well. This was your toughest personal decision, full stop, to give up being that CEO.
Yes, because...
And there'll be a lot of CEOs watching this as well who are thinking about their timing in life. All of us who are of a certain age thinking about our timing. That was really, really tough.
It was really tough, but I got good advice from mentors and coaches around it. I thought a lot about it myself. I had long discussions with the chairman, John Kingman, and the board about it, and I was happy with the decision.
You seemed happy there. I mean, I interviewed you for a long time there. You seemed energized, and you can clearly see people who feel they made the right decisions in their career. They are excited. They have it in their eyes. They smile in their eyes. And I think every time I interviewed you, you look like you were enjoying it.
Well, I think things I've applied myself to in my life, I feel as though I pretty much delivered lots of success as a consequence. And I wake up happy. I'm one of these people who wake up happy, and I'm happy pretty much all of the time. And the world should be a wonderful place, because there's tons of opportunities to do great things out there. We're just not doing enough of those great things right now. But the opportunity set's there to do it and really make a difference, and we can.
You've tried to make a difference and had a degree of success as well, but not many of us can consult Isaiah Berlin about this, political theorist. And so let me just quote it, and I believe this is true. You talked about the search for the truth for the common good as well. And I really believe this, because in many of our interviews over the years, it's come across that you really want to improve the common good via your position and via Legal & General's huge pension position and what have you. The key is the effort to illuminate the facts of the problem, to unlock its resolution for the benefit of many. Has that been one of the guiding principles of your career?
For my whole life, yes.
For your whole life?
Yeah. I was...
The common good?
Yeah. Because I was chairman of the village at the youth club when I was 12 and 13.
You were chairman at 12 and 13.
And I was the representative on the village committee when I was 12 and 13 for youth in the village. And, the average age was about 70 on this committee. So,
and you were going toe-to-toe with the village grandees of 70.
Yeah. And they loved it. They loved it. And I played badminton. I entered the mixed doubles badminton with a pensioner when I was 13. We got the final. We got beat. But it was was, how do you create an environment that's the best it can be, and how do you collaborate together to do that? And I felt even though I was very young, and I used to go knock on door and canvass for the Labour Party, and I was very young at the time, and people would open the door, and this midget stood there asking them questions about things.
I want to ask you one more question about your hardest business decision, because you mentioned your biggest personal tough decision was stepping down.
Yeah.
And this has come up, I know part of your answer, because it's come up with other CEOs I've spoken to, the pain for you in having to make harsh business decisions that are best for the company, best for shareholders, but are painful for individuals.
Yeah, I think it's when you've got to lay off a lot of people. And we lived through the tech boom it's called a tech boom in 2000, 2001, 2002 at UBM. And we had some businesses, one in particular, which had $250 million revenue, made 25 million pounds of profit one year, and just the revenue collapsed the next year because digital came over. They took all the advertising revenue away, which you know about. We had to get rid of thousands of people over a period of time, many of whom had been hugely committed to the brand, to their skills and whatever. And it was the right decision to do because we had no alternative. And we did make the decision, but you felt horrible. It's the only time I felt horrible going to work. It's just knowing that there was names that had been drawn up over the weekend and that people would be let go. And there wasn't an alternative, because we had to build another growth business around it. And too often you hang on to businesses that you then massively underperform, and you put the whole company at risk, because somebody else will come in and make those tough decisions instead of yourself. But if tough decisions have to be made, it's better you make them, and you're intellectually honest with people about why you're making them as well.
Incredibly difficult, especially when you put in stakeholder versus shareholder, because shareholder is the more brutal face of capitalism, it's a more traditional form. I think what you, Nigel, and other CEOs I've spoken to have tried to make it more about stakeholder, more about inclusive capitalism, more about patient capital, more about longer term issues. Have you succeeded?
I think it's always been primarily about shareholders, and there's been a number of people who've had a wider view. And my view is you want to build a globally trusted brand, and part of the reason you're doing that is you do really good things at all different levels of the company, and are visibly seen to be beneficial to the communities that you've operated in and the people who work for you.
But is that sometimes at the expense of the bottom line, which the shareholders, dare I say it, some of them just care about?
I don't think it is in terms of the long-term bottom line, because doors open up to you and doors lead to doors. If you do good things, and people open doors for you, and we built a business incredibly quickly in Japan and in America because people trusted the brand, and that trust is what you need. You can either have technology trust or business trust, and we tried to have a combination of both, providing great value to customers and all those other good things that we did. It also attracted great talent to come and work for the company, and I'd have never achieved what I achieved without the executive team who sat around me. And it's funny, one of the most motivating things for them was when I used to say, sorry, I called that one wrong. Some of them had a different idea, and it's actually theirs was a better idea. And I just put my hand up because it helped culturally for other people to say, sorry, we're miles off on,
So this is Nigel Wilson. He's gone from being tough, finding it difficult to be forgiving, to now he's saying, look, I make mistakes, guys, and you guys have some better ideas sometimes. Well, that's nice for the team, isn't it? Is that good management?
Yeah. They went down the pub and celebrated, and then invited me down
with your corporate card, hopefully, or personal card, even better.
Personal card, even better on these situations. But it felt that everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes, and actually put your hand up because people can empathize with that as well, because everyone's done it. The momentum you get in a business by having this, collaborative culture, intellectual honesty, doing things for, the societal good is actually fantastic from a cultural point of view.
You're quite there's quite a contrast in you, isn't there? There's the guy who loves his sport, who wants to go down the pub and have a chat, and then there's the academic side, talking to the likes of Isaiah Berlin over the years. And things. So it's a nice mix, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I do. I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness. I compartmentalize things, and so I'm focused on this, and then I move to this. I focus on that, and can forget about all this stuff. So my brain never gets cluttered. So when I go to bed to go to sleep, I just go to sleep. Whereas a lot of other people, and I've talked to a lot of CEOs about it, they're lying there thinking,
well, they say what's sleep or what's a weekend or something.
Yeah, and all
you
that
can switch off just like that.
Like that, and just focus on.
That is a superpower.
It is a super. Yeah. So my children, when I was with them, would always think, "Dad's 100% focused on us. He's not busy fiddling about on his phone." And
you mentioned your children. I know for a fact that you not only have you got more children than me, but you've got more daughters than me, and so 5 daughters.
5 daughters. Yeah.
Tough?
No, I think wonderful. I think they were. You know, my wife did a great job as well. We were a team built, bringing up these children who have turned out to be really good adults as well.
Amazing.
And they're good mothers and they're good wives.
Good people with healthy mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
The rest of it can just happen. Or
It
not.
just happens.
Yeah.
It just happens, and they're you know they've got their own views on lots of different things, and it's great to see.
You have not gone with a government role over the years. I know you've been tapped more than once, I'm sure, to join a government of whatever stripes it is as well. Do you think that governments, whether it be the last Conservative government or the current Labour government or governments globally as well, are making the wrong decisions when, given everything we've said about making patient decisions, long-term decisions, inclusive decisions? It feels like there's a lot of knee-jerk going on, a lot of angst about the position we're in the UK, despite everything you've been doing and talking to me about over the years.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think, and Canary Wharf's a good example.
Where you are now.
Where I am now, the chairman of that is, that's almost like a gift to the nation. You know, it's a little city within a city. And you look at it now, you know, where, you know, Revolut's a great example. You know, literally 10 years ago, that was 2 men and not a dog, and they didn't have a dog then, in level 39 in one of our buildings. And now they've got a building of their own there and they've become, you know, the most successful fintech. And we match the world, at least match the world in fintech. And at Canary Wharf, we've got tons of fintech companies coming through. We've got tons of life sciences companies. And it's a real growth environment. And the big firms are pretty much all staying now, and so which is great. We've got, you know, all of the, you know, we've got JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Citibank. You know,
and they're making some firm commitments going
forward. And they're
forward
making firm, you know, 10, 15, 20-year commitments to it. Because London's a great city and the UK is a great country. But we've chosen the wrong route to go on right now. We decided, for whatever reason, not to go for growth, but to go for a whole bunch of ideological solutions.
Disappointed are you? And again, I don't want to point fingers at the current government or the Chancellor or what have you, but they promised to make long-term, dare I say it, executive decisions for the country. And they seem to get stuck in the here and now rather than the future.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of businessmen I speak to, businessmen and women, are very disappointed.
Yes, I think that's true. I think the big decision they made, which had lots of unintended consequences, was not deciding not to increase the big taxes.
They corralled themselves by their own manifesto.
Yeah, and if they hadn't done that, and you'd gone in and had a look at the P&L and the balance sheet, the cash flow that you would say, well, actually, the first thing we need to do is put up income tax. We'll put up income tax by a penny. That'll get rid of all of the problems that we had. Then we can focus on growth, and then focus on growth. Once you get growth, those big taxes kick in. You get much more revenue. Then you can solve the ideological problems that are existing in society. And they went the wrong way around. They did all the ideological stuff, and now you can't get the growth.
You're a businessman. You're an academic. Why don't you just go over the divide, become a politician and lead from inside? That's a key decision which you've chosen not to make.
Yeah, and it is a key decision I've chosen not to make. And for, I think multiple reasons. I'm very happy in my life. It was the course I wanted to choose. I don't feel as though. And
well, what about the kitchen or the Hague poster? Your country needs you, Nigel.
Yeah. I get people send me that actually.
Oh, they do.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Martin Gilbert.
Martin Gilbert, who obviously you mentioned about Revolut just now.
Yeah. So he sent me one of those messages. There's a wonderful business community out there who they need. Politicians engage with pre the election and post the election not so much, and so everybody feels disappointed about that. But we have to go for growth, and As I said earlier, Canary Wharf's a good example. My other job at the moment in Cambridge, there's a huge opportunity for growing.
Of course, you've taken on a recent role there as well.
Yes, chair of Cambridge Innovation Capital, which again is another growth vehicle. I'm still very close to all the people at lots of other universities, as your research has pointed out. And they've got to themselves change their business model going forward and go for growth and do a lot more education of the people they've already educated to make them have much greater business skills than they've currently got to adapt to the new environment that we're in. And so we all have to be focusing on growth and doing the right things to deliver that growth. So the universities need to be more vocationally focused than they have been, so that the people who come out of those universities have a much better chance of getting jobs, because that's a big problem right now. The people who've already got jobs get re-skilled or learn new skills, particularly in this new heavy science, heavy technology, AI-driven world, because there's very few people who are really capable in that world right now. And we're going to fall too far behind if we don't make a massive effort in those areas.
What are the big decisions left for Nigel Wilson? Bearing in mind, you're a fit, young, non-executive chairman in many, many ways.
Yeah.
And I know how fit you are, and we'll come to the sport in a moment. But tell me about what are the professional decisions that you really want to nail in the next few years?
Yeah, there's professional and personal decisions.
Yeah.
And the professional one is, given this environment, how do I have the biggest impact? Is it by being involved with 5 or 6 influential organisations, being involved with leading universities in the UK, involved with some other businesses in the UK who've got large amounts of human capital comes from the universities, and financial capital come from all of the relationships I have, pulling them both together to really make multiple micro that has a macro impact. The alternative
regardless of what government makes its decisions.
Regardless of what government does, but actually hopefully in harmony with government. Alternatively is at some point to say, well, actually, I will roll my sleeves up now and go and have a chat to Keir and Rachel and say, this is what I'd really like to do. I'd really like to be part of the team. I'm making the first decision at the moment. I'm very happy making that decision. That's my professional. My personal one, as you know, is I'm determined to break a British record for some.
So let me just recap. I mentioned I love my sport and I adore it, but I am woefully in the mid pack. I think that's fair to say. You are not in the mid pack. You're up there, and again, you're a very, very strong middle distance runner. You've loved your sport. You've done pretty well over the years as well. Are you looking for a British record when you get to a certain milestone? Is that the way forward?
Yeah, I've got a training program which peaks on the 18th of November next.
Which is 1 or 2 days after your birthday, a significant birthday, which will then put you in a different category of British athletics, which means that you can have a crack at it.
That means I can have a crack, because I'm pretty close.
800 metres or
1, 2, 4, 8. I'm 100. I've won national titles at 100, 200, 400, and 800 meters. But when I have to decide, I'm pretty sure I have to pick one of them.
Right. And
I don't know which one that's going to be right now, and really focus on that and allocate more time to training, because I can keep really fit with training at 70 or 80%. But to get super fit, I need to train at 100%. And that probably requires at least 50%.
Why do you love sport, Nigel? I know why I love it, but why do you love sport? What does it do for you?
Well, I think the emotional engagement, and at times the irrational emotional engagement, and the fun that you have, and the ups and downs of supporting your football team or cricket or
just
whatever.
Downs in my case.
And it's one of the things that's still exciting live. I mean, lots of TV and other things. We move around now. We had the video first. Now we've got iPlayer and Netflix and all sorts of things that allow us to move stuff around. There's something about the experience of live sport which is just fantastic, and you can't change that.
Watching and participating. And that's the wonderful thing about sport, and that's why it's so successful right now, because actually lots of people love watching live entertaining or being part of that. Final point, I think when you have the release valve, you have something else going on in your life, you become a more rounded executive, you can be more objective, it gives you perspective on everything else in life. For you, your ethos is dictated to originally, but you've got mentors, you've got family, you've got sport as well, you've got a vision as well. All these things help you make better executive decisions, or am I missing something? No, that's true, yeah. And you get grounded by your family as well. Still the most important thing is family comes first, and
the most important thing to me in my life is my family, my beautiful daughters, and my 5 grandchildren. I've got now.
Are they all girls as well?
They are no. There's a mixture.
Okay,
there's 3 and 2, and so. And it's lovely, and so in fact, I'm doing a bit of babysitting tonight for one of them, which is a huge thrill to me, which I could never have done in my chief executive life, and so that was another decision that I wanted to make. Is to spend time.
We're better to leave it than Sir Nigel Wilson, babysitter extraordinaire. Thank you. I hope you make the right decisions on your babysitting as well.
Yeah, I try to.
Don't let the kids stay up too late. Nigel, lovely to see you again. And thank you so much for letting us explore your executive decisions.
Thank you very much indeed. I loved it today. Thank you.
I've really loved interviewing Sir Nigel Wilson over the last decade because he says what he means, he's outspoken, and he's incredibly honest. This Executive Decisions episode, though, took that a stage further. I've learned so much more about his humble background, about the importance of family, about his love of academia. He's basically an academic who became a businessman. I also love the fact that he has strong views on the role of business in society. He's a great example of a CEO or a business leader who doesn't just worry about the shareholders, who actually sees that capital, markets, business has a role in wider society and long-term gains in that society. Thank you for joining me on Executive Decisions. I'd love to hear your feedback. Drop your thoughts in the comments or a review. And please hit that follow or subscribe button. You won't want to miss the next episode of the podcast dropping on Tuesday, where I speak to the visionary behind video content platform Synthesia, Victor Rippabelli.
I grew up with all these interests that was kind of outside of the beaten path. I hated going to school. I hate when people tell me what to do, like learning something because I'm told to learn something.
So you're rebellious. I'm really looking forward to it, so we'll see you then.